When you're ready.
All right, I'm Nick Helsema. I'm a sports performance coach intern here at Marquette University in the fall of 2017 university. Today I'll be presenting on my squash annual plan and training program. So it's not a super popular sport, so a lot of you might be asking what is squash or wondering what squash is. Well, squash is a plant or vegetable based off the gourd family. There are different variations. You have your zucchini, you have your field pumpkins. We don't typically eat those. That's more of the plant-based. My personal favorite, butternut squash. But my primary focus today will be on professional squash. That will cover majority of my presentation. So a little bit of a background. First started in the UK in 1830. Started in Harrow. I think it was a school. But it's a worldwide sport. It's played all over. It's predominantly played in Australia, Egypt, France, Eastern Hemisphere. That's where you'll see all your top players. Most of them are from there. I think there might be a woman from the United States who's like ranked 7th in the world right now, but it's not very popular in the US. It is gaining popularity. Very similar to tennis. Players will alternate striking back and forth, rallying. The only difference is you're playing inside a court with 4 walls and there's a ceiling. I'll get to the court dimensions after this, but it's started by you serve into the wall and you begin rallying, much like it's tennis, hitting into the wall, hits the wall, it gets 1 bounce and you have to hit it again. If it bounces twice, you earn a point. It's played up to 11, 1 point at a time, rally scoring, best of 3, no rest in between points, 90 seconds in between each match, take about 45 minutes. A lot of people mix up with racquetball. They're very different. Racquetball is more recreational. Squash is becoming more of a professional thing. And I'll go over the dimensions of the court that make it different. The main difference is the ball they use and the rackets are differently sized, and the rules overall. So it's kind of a blurry picture, it's hard to tell, but here are the dimensions. It's 32 by 21 feet. These walls that you can't see, these are also walls. This is a glass wall so spectators can see. Every wall is a playable surface, except you'll see at the top there is an outline. If it hits above that, the point doesn't count. Down beneath that thick line, that's called the tin. If it hits that line or below, it doesn't count, it's an out of bounds hit. It's split in half and then another half court line. Each player will start on each box, and there's a service box where you start from. That service line is only in play when you serve it. As soon as that, it's all free reign. You can go crazy. Rallies are really nuts in this game. So getting into my needs analysis, like I said, it's similar to tennis. There's multi-directional movements, a lot of rotational movements. You need to be a good endurance athlete, but you also need to be powerful so you can hit it. The ball that they use slows down the more that it's not elastic, so you need to be powerful to hit it to move the ball. Rallies require constant and quick multi-directional movements. Physiological, as I said, muscular endurance. Rallies typically last 10 to 30 seconds, but it's high intense 10 to 30 seconds. You're moving very quickly, you're sprinting around, you're diving, you're lunging. With those things, injury analysis, overuse, you're moving your shoulder a lot, wrist, low back. Big thing to look at is postural. A lot of people will be rounded over because of the position they're in, holding their racket in front, so their chest kind of closes in. The big thing with overuse injuries, and it's kind of tough, is if you're right-handed dominant or left-handed dominant. That's where most of those overuse, not a lot of people switch because it is such a fast-paced game. Knees and ankles are always things to watch out for because they are lunging, jumping, stuff like that. So I'll show you a quick rally that I found on YouTube. Starts off kind of slow, but you'll see it starts to pick up.
There was a bit of a dive, a semi. It was like a sliding skid. Well, there's a fall. Oh my, no. No way. No way. No way. There's a dive. It's a joke.
That's outrageous! Here's a better view of the court. The venues are actually pretty cool, how they're seated all around. It's an entire glass box so everyone can see. It can be played in singles or doubles. I didn't look into it, but I believe doubles courts are slightly wider just to account for the extra person in there. But but as you can see, it's hard to tell here, but there is a ceiling. If it hits the ceiling, that's also an out. But you can see 4 walls, everything's a playable surface. So now we'll get into my annual plan. Squash is not a normal sport. Its season is much like tennis. There are tournaments going on consistently all year round, and it depends what type of player you are level-wise. I'm planning for someone who is a top-level player, top-ranked player in the world. There will be 6 tournaments that you'll see that I'm planning for. So to start off, you'll see I have 9 weeks of an off-season, which is split into 2 blocks. There is nothing going on throughout that whole off-season, preseason. There will be tournaments going on throughout there that the athlete may compete in, but I would train through those. I'm assuming it's a top-ranked player. To explain a little bit about the season, what I mean by that, your world ranking and your World Series ranking are 2 different things. Your World Series ranking is what matters for those tournaments that are highlighted in the yellow. Your world ranking is affected by everything else. In order to compete in those, you need to be a top 32 player in the world, and you only earn that ranking by playing other small tournaments. So if you're already in the top 32, you typically don't do those, and you only compete in those. It's kind of weird. So other tournaments affect your World Series ranking, but once you're in the World Series ranking, it can only be changed by playing in that tournament. So here you can kind of see long stretch with no important tournaments. Then we have back-to-back-to-back tournaments. From here, now we have 2 months off. And so my idea with this was they would get a recovery break where they're not training because they just did 3 back-to-back tournaments. That's taxing. Then we're going to get back into the training, and we're going to repeat our block that we did in the off-season, get back to the one that we did in the preseason, because there's 2 months until their next tournament, their next important one. Because this one is so far along, it is the middle of the year, I do plan on training through this one, because then they have this long block of recovery. After that long block of recovery, we do the same thing over. We start that first off-season block, get into the preseason block, get back into the end season, and these last 2 tournaments are the most important, with that being the championship, and that would eventually lead into a taper. Just kind of show some examples of what the blocks would look like. It's kind of small and hard to tell. So this first block, this is the first block of the off season. The goal with this is mostly hypertrophy. The exercises I chose are to develop musculature in common injury spots and muscle areas that we'll be using in the bulk of our block as the season goes on. So up top I have strict press, band pull parts for posture, barbell shrugs, external internal rotation for the shoulder, rear foot elevated squat, calf raises, leg curls, and back extensions. Like I said, these are all hypertrophy based workouts. These are based solely for musculature. And then that will lead us into the second block of the off season. Now we're getting to the bulk of our things. I have push press, TRX rows, clean pulls, back squat, box jumps, glute ham raise, and pull-ups. The bulk of this block now is we're transitioning into a strength phase. This, we're going to get them nice and strong. I want to build up a nice strength base, so leading into the power block, we can work on moving weight fast and moving it quickly. Here's the power block. You'll notice a lot of my exercises are progression based then, so we go from a push press now to a power jerk. Clean pulls now transition into power cleans. Back squats and box jumps stay, med ball slams, and then I have multi-directional hurdle hops. This is now power-based and working more on rate of force development and making sure that they can move quickly, move powerfully, because it's one of the most important things in the sport. And then in season, keeping power jerks because they're familiar with it. Med ball push press, power clean, med ball lunge with a toss, back squat and box jumps. The whole plan with here is to maintain what we've been doing the whole time. So when we go from an in-season, because you'll notice in my annual plan we're repeating blocks as we go. So I don't want to introduce new things into the season. I want to keep things how that they're comfortable with and that they understand what they're doing. And that's about it. So any questions? Bobby.
Especially in the video, you notice there's a lot of diving and rolling around on the court, especially if they're hitting those low blocks. How much do you account for flexibility in your training plan for being able to get out of those movements?
I actually don't account for it that much because I watched a lot of rallying, and rallies like that aren't super common. You don't see a lot of diving, you don't see a lot of people leaving their feet. You do see a lot of lunging and stuff like that, but hitting the ground in floor like that isn't super common.
How are you gonna account for like rotator cuff protection?
So my whole plan with that in the preseason, it'll be a lot of prehab type stuff. But once I get into the bulk of my program, my whole basis is getting them strong. And if you get them strong, I don't think strong athletes are easily as injured as weak athletes. So if you get them strong in the right places.
Kind of off the back of that, in your annual plan, there's segments where you identified kind of testing at different points in time. So what are your kind of key performance indicators for a squash player, and what kind of testing are you looking to do throughout the year?
A common thing I'll test is back squat, because that's one of the most common things throughout my entire program, no matter what time of year it is. Other things I would test would be lunging, like the triple leg hop that you do with tennis, broad jump, vertical jump, things like of that nature.
Any further questions? All right, good stuff.
Follow me.